Hey everybody, hope you guys doing alright. So, this is a message from Matthew McConaughey. When he was on, I forget the exact name of the dude's channel, but they did an interview outside by an amazing tree. I think the dude's name was Rick. I'm not sure, but it was just him and Matthew. They were outside, sitting behind, where the tree was behind them. If my memory serves me correctly, which would make sense. Otherwise, the tree would be obscuring their view. And I remember in the interview, I think it was, no, wait, it wasn't even that interview. I'm sorry, but it was around the same time. He did like 3 interviews, or at least 2, in the same period, around the same period of time. But it wasn't that one. It was one he did with Chris Williamson, I think. And if I'm mistaken, it's one of those two. But anyway, so he was talking about rage. And he was talking about how, I've talked about this already, but I just wanted to continue to further press on this issue because it's a real big fucking deal. And I feel like Matthew is, and I just saw something too in Gladiator 2, which I was disappointed. I mean, they did a good job making the movie. Like, they put a good effort in quality, filmmaking, very quality. However, I just feel like it lost what was in Gladiator 1. Like the magic, like that level of magic was lost to me. But it was still done well. Like, acting was good and all that, just across the board was good. But just the spirit and like general grittiness and just feeling that I got. Now, I'm very different. When I first watched that movie, it was like 20 years ago, and totally different period of my life than where I am now. But anyway, it still just didn't ring true the same way the first one did. Even when I watched the first one, I still am struck with feelings that are different than I did in the second one. However, they still did a pretty good job. But anyway, there's a point when Denzel, and this is an issue that it's a real big, you guys are actually causing more harm. You really are. This is why this is also a very important message from Matthew. So I hope he gets it. I hope he meditates on it and takes heed to it, because it's something that could literally get him and people around him hurt or even killed. The same goes for Denzel, since he just fucking made a movie portraying this message particularly. And it has to do with rage. And in the movie Gladiator 2, Denzel's telling the young gladiator that rage, that's what's gonna get you, that's what's gonna save you, that's what people love, that's what's gonna make you successful, that's how I'm gonna use you, is through your rage. They did a good job portraying, because the movie, the story of the movie was actually good, because it was all about, so that part of Gladiator 2 was good, but I was just looking, like, from the feeling that I got from the movie, just everything, and I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that right now humanity is living in a time where we've sold so much of our souls that we've lost touch with that good authenticity. So I think it's hard for any movie to come across with that same type of essence that was so much more abundant back then, because we've just lost that much more of our souls. So yeah, because the movie, the story, the message of the movie was actually a good one, and I haven't even finished it yet, so I'm not sure, but I stopped it because I was kind of disappointed, and I didn't like seeing Denzel doing what he did, even though the part that he's choosing to play is a necessary part, and the overall movie is spinning a good theme, so his involvement in it is overwhelmingly good because the overall message is good. But he did choose to play a character that's bad, and it's also perpetuating the notion that it's good to choose rage. And I haven't seen the movie, so he might flip sides and do something good. I hope he does. But from what I've seen thus far, he's very much a proponent of rage, and he also did some fucked up shit to get, I mean, this is spoiler alerts, so if you haven't seen it yet, and you want to see it, you might not want to listen to this, but he ended up getting there's 2 emperors that happened to be ruling at that time. He got one of their brothers, because that's how the family and shit. He ended up getting one brother to kill the other emperor, and he did so. He had the one that he knew he could control more kill the one that he couldn't control more, because in doing so, he killed the threat that threatens his ability to control the other, which gives him the ultimate power over the whole empire. And he talks about it, and so I do appreciate that they showed how these motherfuckers do that shit, because that's how these motherfuckers are ruthless, like A2 Brute. Like, yes, that's why I've always questioned people that choose the dark side, because these people don't fucking care about you. Like, you always gotta watch your back. Like, there's no love. It's constant fucking a power struggle. You're always having to domineer, be dominated. It's really people that need, that's why it's stimuli. It's all about stimuli, because that domineering and being dominated, that's all stimuli. It's all instant gratification and stimuli. When you get people to dominate and bow on their fucking knees, that's a stimuli that people get off of. Anyway, I'm getting off of fucking tangent here. I really just want to talk about rage and from Matthew McConaughey, because in the interviews he was talking about, he emphasized rage as a motivator, and he was like encouraging people to use rage as something to motivate them in life. And now that I'm speaking about it more, it's coming to me clearly that it was Chris. It was the interview he did with Chris, and Chris was actually did a good job of stopping Matthew. Well, I mean, I say interjecting and being like, I don't know if rage is really the best emotion to motivate one, because rage can get you hurt. You know, I mean, that can lead us to trip up, to do things that we didn't want to do because we were overwhelmed by the feeling of rage. It's a very powerful and that's what rage is all about. It's an overwhelming feeling to where you do things that can be often be reckless, irrational. You push things too far, you go out of bounds, and you do things that end up hurting things that didn't need to get hurt. And I think, you know, and then if you're going back to Interstellar, one of the very notorious lines, if not the most notorious line of that whole movie, was the quote that comes from Dylan Thomas's poem. I forget the title of it, but I remember the poem very clearly because Dylan Thomas was a poet that I chose to study when I was in college. Actually, I took a poetry class. It was Dylan Thomas who I chose to study. And he's got that I can't remember the whole poem, but there's that famous line about rage, rage, rage into the dying of the night. Like, do not go gently into that dying night. Rage, rage, rage into the dying of the night. Or it's something along those lines. I can't remember each word for verbatim, but it's something along those lines. Just keep on raging, and no matter what, even as things are dying all around you, keep on fighting, essentially. Although maybe you should have changed to use the word fight instead of rage, because rage has that reckless implication. But that's the message. That's the words choice in the poem, the feeling. Well, at least I feel like this is where Matthew might have gotten it from. I could be wrong, but I'm not wrong about his choice of using the word rage. So even if that happens to be a coincidence, which I don't really believe in coincidences, but even if he didn't reference that poem, it's still essentially saying a similar thing that Matthew is saying, to use rage as a motivator, to continue raging against the dying of the good light. However, that rage is in itself is a force that can cause the light to die. So this is where I think Matthew is mistaken in what he has chosen to share with humanity in regards to what he feels is a good motivator. It's not rage. Rage is there for time and place, but not to be used very often. That's like something you use when there's nothing else to use. Love, goodness. These are the best things that we can use to motivate people to work in a way, to be motivated in a way that's best for themselves and everybody else all at the same time. There's no two other words that I've found other than healthiness and harmony that portray the type of fucking mentality humanity needs to persevere and to survive, to be victorious in this time that we're in. And in fact, I'll go so far as to say that people like Matthew, especially with his influence, saying things, and that's also why I give a very good shout out to Chris for interjecting in that moment and, you know, kind of correcting Matthew, and from his perspective, he was correcting him and pointing out that to use rage as a motivator is very dangerous. It can get you and other people hurt. But it's just interesting to see somebody of Matthew, who, coming from all of his accomplishments and his wealth and success, still has the mindset to share with the people and to feel like he's sharing good wisdom with the people, to suggest that they should continue to rage as an emotion to motivate them as opposed to love or goodness. And being somebody who's had a lot of time with anger and rage, I know how fucking detrimental that emotion can be. And I also know how sad I become after I rage, and how empty I become after I rage, and how selfish a lot of the times my rage and anger is motivated by, and how that can cause me to overlook the needs of all those that are much more worse state than my own. And I am guilty of this at times as well. I'm not saying this as one who's mastered this level. No, I am still learning it myself too. But in learning it, it's my good duty to share with the world when I see and witness things, especially from people of a lot of influence, that really aren't cipher, that aren't really good for humanity to appreciate and to embrace. Especially, again, coming from the mouths of somebody like Matthew McConaughey, because he is such a powerful influence. So, All right, I love you guys. Y'all take care. Bye.